It's never too early to talk draft when you're a fan of the New York Jets, but since it is the bye week, let's have some fun and start to talk about some options for the Jets in the 2022 NFL Draft. They have not one but two first round picks. They have seven picks in the first four rounds. So this is going to be a very exciting draft season for every Jet fan. So let's talk about it here on the show. My name is Jake Asman. Welcome in. Please subscribe to the channel by clicking that red subscribe button on the right side of your screen, and I will continue to post daily Jets video content. So let's talk about it. What should the Jets do in the 2020 NFL Draft? Now, I'm always hesitant to try and predict the draft, one, this early, and two, when you just don't know where the team is going to be picking. As of right now, though, if we're going to do the hypothetical here on October 14th, the Jets would have the fourth overall pick in the draft. They also would have the 12th overall pick in the draft. Now, I think the Jets are going to get better as the year goes on because they're the youngest team in the NFL, rookie head coach, quarterback, rookie OC. Zach Wilson will play better later in the season than he is right now, and thus the Jets will win more games, I believe, in the second half of the season. So with that being said, I don't think the Jets are going to be sitting there potentially with a top 5 pick when it's all said and done, but things could change. And obviously that Seattle pick right now is in the top 12, which is unbelievable, but we'll see how they finish up with Geno Smith having to play and then Russell Wilson having to come back. So what I thought would be beneficial here is just kind of talking about the philosophy of what I think the Jets should do in the draft. And then we'll talk about some of the targets that could be realistic options for them. So the philosophy for me is offensive line, edge rusher, or corner. You could not waste a high draft pick on a non-premium position. The issue the Jets had with Jamal Adams is not that he wasn't a great player when he was with the Jets, is that he was a box safety that you used the 6th overall pick on. You can't do it. You have to use your draft picks to fill up premium positions. So to me, a premium position would be edge rusher, cornerback, or offensive line. I will allow guard and center to be included in that premium position because I think in today's NFL, yeah, you want great tackles, but you also, in a throwing league that it is, you just want good offensive linemen. Like, ask the Indianapolis Colts if they regret using a top 6 pick on Quentin Nelson, right? So ultimately, I'm all about just offensive line play, interior offensive line play. I still consider that a premium position in the draft. So with that being said, to me, the Jets' options, if they're picking, let's say, in the top 5, certainly in the top 10, they got to be looking corner and they got to be looking offensive line. Now, the thing with corner is, depending on how the rest of the year plays out, we might not look at corner as like a huge need for the Jets. But if they're sitting there and one of these stud corners are on the board, sometimes you just go best player available if that best player plays a premium position. If Devin Singletary Jr. is there, the corner out of LSU, the unquestioned number 1 cornerback prospect in the draft, then I think he's a guy that you seriously consider with one of your top first round picks here. I mean, he's been great this year for LSU. Last year, he was just dominant in 2020. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be probably the first corner taken off the board. So I start with him. Other cornerback targets for the Jets, look out for Tariq Castro Fields out of Penn State. Talented guy. I've seen comparisons to Marlon Humphrey. Great ball skills, speed. He's a guy that could be a Jets target. Also, Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson. You know, this is a guy that is a high-level talent. He obviously comes from a top-notch program, despite the down season Clemson is having. He's a guy that I think could also be a Jets target. So I look at cornerback and I look at offensive line as the 2 top needs. Now, if Kayvon Thibodeau is there and the Jets are lucky enough to somehow get him, sure, you could take the best edge rusher in the draft. I'd be all for it. I don't think that's a realistic option. I think if you look at the draft order right now, Thibodeau is very likely to end up in Jacksonville, Detroit, Houston. The Eagles got 2 picks potentially in the top 7 because of that Carson Wentz trade. We'll see how that plays out. So I don't expect Thibodeau to be an option for the Jets, but I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo potentially taking, a premium edge rusher at the top of the draft. Like, yes, they're going to get Carl Lawson back. Yes, the Jets do have some great players on this defensive line, but sometimes best player available, I'm all for if they play a premium position, but I don't think that's going to be where they end up here. Now, let's talk about offensive line. because I would have zero issue at all. And I suspect a lot of Jet fans would have zero issue at all if the Jets took, let's say, Tyler Lindenbaum, the center out of Iowa, with their first round pick. Let's say the Jets are picking in the top 10. I think they will be. So if they're in the top 10, if they use, let's say, the 8th or the 9th overall pick on a center, I'd be all for it. This guy's that good. And if you look at the Jets in their history, they have never taken offensive line in the first round in 3 consecutive years in the modern draft era. That's from 1970 on. This would be historic for the Jets, and I think it would send a great message to the fan base that they are dead serious about giving Zach Wilson the opportunity to be a great quarterback for this team going forward. You have Mekhi Becton, you have Elijah Vera Tucker. If you shore up center or guard in the first round, I think that would be a home run by the Jets. If they did Lindenbaum with their first pick and they did corner with their second pick that they have from Seattle, I'd be good with that. If they swapped that and did corner first, right? Singletary first, then Lindenbaum, or they did Singletary first, and then they took the guard out of Texas A&M, who I watch closely living here in Houston, Kenyon Green. This is a guy, or Kenyon Green, excuse me. This guy's 6'4", 325 pounds. Guy's a beast. He is an impactful player. I think he'd make a lot of sense for the Jets in this draft here. So if they end up with the following corner and lineman, I don't really care about the order. I will defer to Joe Douglas on that. He knows more about football than any of us do. And I think he's nailed it with the Becton pick. I think Becton will come back this year and remind everyone why we loved him last year. I think we're going to see the growth of AVT throughout the year. He's been the best guard in football statistically the last 2 games. If you add another premium offensive lineman to this unit, you're setting your franchise up for long-term success. I think the Jets are going to have a solid defense. They have emerged in the secondary with Bryce Hull leading the way. But if you add another number 1 corner to that, you're talking about a Jets defense with 2 potentially lockdown corners that will help the defensive line. And the defensive line the Jets already have, getting Lawson back next year, still having Quinnen Williams, locking up John Franklin Myers, Sheldon Rankins here on another year. You're talking about a defense that could be very elite if you had a shutdown corner to go with a guy in Bryce Hall that's already played well. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about Kyle Hamilton as a target for the Jets in this draft. I'm iffy on taking safety. As I understand that the guy has very good coverage skills, so he's the opposite of Jamal Adams. But I just don't like taking non-premium positions that high. If it was later in the first round, like the Jets were coming off a playoff season, all right, you go best player available. And if that guy falls to you, I'd be all for it. But the Jets are in a spot here where I think you have to only take premium position type of players this early on in the NFL draft. You're likely talking about 2 picks in the top 15. I think you got to go premium positions at both of them. The benefit for the Jets is they don't need a quarterback. So you're not wasting one of your first-round picks on a QB. That was last year. You got your quarterback. Now you build around him. Zach Wilson will be the guy if the Jets put him in position to have long-term success. I continue to maintain my stance that Zach's going to be a very good NFL quarterback. So everything they do has to be within, the idea of helping him, reach his sky-high potential. Lineman does that, whether it's guard or it's center. I mean, Jet fans, we saw the value that Nick Mangold had for all those years with the New York Jets. Mark Sanchez had so much success early on because the Jets built him the best offensive line in football. You had a mix of veterans and young players on that line, right? DeBrickashaw, Nick Mangold, but then you add Alan Faneca, you add Damian Woody, you add Brandon Moore. The Jets could do that next year with their line if, let's say, it's Becton, Vera Tucker, Lindenbaum, or Green. And then you add maybe Moses. You could bring him back at right tackle. There's going to be options for this Jets offensive line. Improving the O-line, I think, should be, a number 1 goal for this team. Now, you also have plenty of premium picks in the second round as well. You got 2 second-round picks. So here's what I would do. I'd draft a tight end with one of these high picks. The tight end out of A&M. I've watched him a lot. Windeman, or I don't even know the guy's name 100%. But, I mean, he's made plays all year. He's been tremendous. So that's a guy that you could look at here. You could also go, corner once again in the second round. If you don't do it in the first round, if you trust the scouting department that there's a guy that they like, I'd be okay with that as well. I'd be okay with wide receiver in the second round as well if there's a guy you really like. I mean, you got to go best player available probably from the second round on. I'm not saying you don't do it in the first round, but you got to make sure you hit those premium positions. So we're not talking 4 years from now. Oh, what are they going to do with Kyle Hamilton? Are they going to pay him and he's a safety? No. You got to draft guys that you're willing to sign long-term. That's why it's tackle, center, guard, corner, edge rusher. That's what you do with top 15 picks. So, I could spend all day getting into the hypotheticals, talking about, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? The reality is right now the Jets have the 4th pick in the draft and they have the 12th pick in the draft. That's likely going to change, could benefit the Jets based on what Seattle does. I mean, I think the Jets are going to win some games here and they're going to be picking outside the top 5 when it's all said and done. So we shall see ultimately how it plays out. But that's my early thought on kind of where the Jets are at, right? Those are some players to watch, but I think more importantly, it's the type of player that we're looking at. The type of position that these players play has to be emphasized by Joe Douglas in the front office going forward. With that being said, let's open it up and let's see what we got here. A lot of people I see in the comment section want tight end. We need a wide receiver or a tight end. Chris, I see you're writing in tight end should be our 3rd or 4th pick. I think tight end in the 2nd round would be great. You got 2 second-round picks. I'd be all about it. The Jets also could use a safety, by the way. I don't want to poo-poo the idea that they need a safety. I think they do need a safety. Now, you could do some of that in free agency. You also could use one of your picks. Once again, it is 7 picks in the first 4 rounds. You could use some of that on a safety as well. So, overall, what do we got here? Let's see. John, you want 3 offensive linemen with the first 3 picks. I'm not against it. It's just not going to happen. You're gonna mix and match. I think the Jets will use their first 2 first-round picks, 1 on a defensive player, 1 on an offensive player. I'd be shocked if the offensive player doesn't play center or ends up being the team's starting right guard next year. No doubt about that. Let's see. Chris, I know everyone wants Lindenbaum, but right guard's more important. If you could start at right guard, then switch to center in year 2, that'd work for me. I think they're both important. I think center and right guard are just as important for this team going forward. I don't think you could go wrong with either one. I think it's going to come down to value, what the Jets scouts think of these guys, and ultimately where they end up picking, because that's going to influence a lot of where they end up being. Tyler Lindenbaum is a superstar. That's the report on this kid. This guy's unbelievable. Austin writes in, take the beast on the offensive line from Bama. I didn't even mention the player from Bama. You're referring to Evan Neal, mainly because I don't think he's going to be there for the Jets. He's probably the first offensive lineman taken. Why? Because he's played guard, he's played right tackle, and this year he's playing left tackle. He's the most versatile stud offensive lineman in this draft. He's not going to be there, I doubt, when the Jets are making their pick. Unless the Jets have the 2nd or 3rd overall pick, which I don't think they will, I don't think he's going to be there. So I don't look at Neal as a guy that's going to be, a true option. Kyle Hamilton, 1st pick, Lindenbaum 2nd. I'm weary about taking a safety that high. I'm okay with it if there's a plan in place with that 2nd pick with Lindenbaum. The hype around Lindenbaum, from what I can understand here, is that the guy's going in the top 10. I don't think that Seattle pick's going to end up being in the top 10. I think it's going to be just outside the top 10 when it's all said and done. You want Zach Wilson throwing to Berrios and Jeff Smith again. Grant, I don't. I don't think that's going to happen, though. The Jets are going to still have Corey Davis. They're going to have Elijah Moore. I think Mims will still be here. They could use free agency to boost the wide receiver group. They also could use the draft to do the same as well. If they went wide receiver with the 2nd pick, so if they go, let's say, O-lineman with the 1st pick, and let's say they go wide receiver with the 2nd pick, I'd be good with that as well. My preference remains, though, defensive player and then offensive line. In the order I'd make it, I'd go O-line, and then I'd go defensive player. I'm good with receiver as well. It's tough to jump to conclusions on October 14th, but it's the bye week, and we're having some fun, so why not? What do we got here? Chris writes in, rounds 5 to 7 are typically for more role players. Role players should we target next year? I think it's best player available at that point. Now, I'm not sitting here and telling you draft a quarterback if you really like one of them. Like, how'd that work for the Jets when they used a 4th-round pick on James Morgan? It's a waste. You don't need to go quarterback in this draft at all. But I would say if you could find guys that have maybe 1st-round talent, 2nd-round talent, but they're coming off injury, and that's why they plummeted, that's where you take a lottery pick stab at it, right? I mean, let's look at Bryce Hull. Bryce Hull should not have been a 6th-round pick, but he played his final year, and he got injured. So he didn't really play. So that's why he slipped. That's a guy that you look at and say, all right, well, can we find another one, another guy like that in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round? That's where you do it. So we shall see how it plays out. JP writes in, interior O-line and tight end. Wilson needs a great tight end. Shout me out, Jake. JP, I got you, brother. Look, there's no doubt they need a tight end. I do not think they should be taking a tight end in round 1. I just wouldn't do it. I think you find value at the tight end spot in the second and in the third round. I don't think they need to do that at all. I much rather go wide receiver in round 1. But I much rather go corner and interior offensive lineman. That'd be my preference for these first 2 picks. Wide receivers are important, but I don't think wide receiver is an obvious, quote, weakness for the Jets right now. I think as Zach Wilson starts to get better and click, we're going to see this team go out there and look way more competent. They obviously need to go out there and they need to, bring in just better overall talent. But I think the need on offense is more so on the O-line than necessarily a wide receiver. I don't think it's a glaring weakness that you need to do it in the first round. If they did it, I'm not upset. I mean, they took, the kid Olave from Ohio State. Great. I'm all for it. But I think you got to be, understanding. I guess what I'm trying to say here is you got to understand that the need for this team to me is way more interior O-line and I would say even corner or edge rusher, just because those are premium positions. I don't think you lose games based on like the wide receiver play. I think you can win games based on great wide receivers, but I think you could wait to the second round, third round, and take a flyer on some guys. That's my personal opinion. If there's a guy that I love, though, I'm absolutely fine with going wide receiver in the first round. All right, with that being said, this was a lot of fun. A lot of people love to talk draft. An early look at the 2022 New York Jets draft options. Here's what we're going to do. Comment your thoughts on what you would like to see the Jets do in the draft following the conclusion of this video. I want to thank all of you who took time to watch. My name is Jake Asman. Please subscribe to the channel. I made it easy for you to subscribe. All you got to do is click that button on the right-hand side of your screen that says subscribe. You do that. That helps me. Like this video as well. You'll see the like button down below. If you could like this video, that helps the channel continue to grow as well. Appreciate all of you who watch. Thanks so much. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section as well. Have a good Thursday, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.